I used to think living with your parents past your early 20s meant something went wrong. In America, it's almost a quiet competition. Who moved out first? Who got their own place? Who's independent? So when I arrived in the Philippines and found out that grown adults, professionals, parents themselves, even people in their 40s, still lived under the same roof as their parents, my brain didn't know where to file it. At first, I judged it. I didn't mean to, but the thought slipped in anyway. Isn't that crowded? Don't people want privacy? Don't parents want their space back? I pictured constant arguments, suffocating rules, and zero freedom. I assumed it was about money or lack of opportunity or tradition forced on people whether they liked it or not. Then I stayed long enough to realize I was wrong. Very wrong. The first Filipino family I lived with didn't treat the house like a place you escape from. It was a place you return to. Every night, no matter how busy the day was, people came back, not just physically, but emotionally. Someone was always cooking. Someone was always talking. Someone was always waiting. In America, I grew up watching families slowly drift apart without drama. Kids leave for college. Parents downsize. Holidays become scheduled events. Love is still there, but it's measured in visits and phone calls. Independence is celebrated so loudly that togetherness sometimes feels like a failure. In the Philippines, togetherness is the default. I met a woman in her early 30s, smart, confident with a stable job, who still lived with her parents. I asked her very casually when she planned to move out. She looked at me the way you'd look at someone who just asked why you plan to stop breathing someday. Why would I? She said. That question stuck with me. Why would she? Her parents weren't controlling. They didn't track her movements or dictate her life. They shared space. They shared meals. They shared responsibility. When she came home late, someone made sure she ate. When her parents were tired, she helped with bills or errands without being asked. No one kept score. I started to notice that Filipino homes aren't designed around separation. They're designed around presence. Doors are open. Conversations overlap. Silence isn't sacred. Life happens together. In the West, we associate adulthood with distance. You prove you've grown up by leaving. In the Philippines, adulthood is proven by staying and contributing. You don't become an adult by walking away from your family. You become an adult by becoming useful to them. Money does play a role, of course. Wages are lower, housing is expensive, and it makes sense to pool resources. But if it were only about money, the attitude would feel heavy. Instead, it feels practical, almost light. There's no shame attached to staying, no urgency to escape. I watched a father come home exhausted from work, and his adult son took his bag without a word and poured him water. I watched a mother sit quietly while her daughter cooked dinner for everyone. I watched grandparents raise grandchildren while parents worked, not as a burden, but as purpose. In American culture, we talk about starting your own life. In the Philippines, life is already started, and you just step into it alongside others. Another thing I didn't expect was how much emotional safety this creates. When something goes wrong, you're not alone. You lose a job, you get sick, your relationship falls apart, there's a house that doesn't close its doors to you. There's food, there's noise. There's someone asking if you've eaten. I once asked a Filipino friend if she ever felt trapped living at home. She thought for a moment and said, "Sometimes it's noisy, sometimes annoying, but trapped? No, this is my base." That word base changed how I saw everything. In the US, we build independence like a tower, one person balancing on their own. In the Philippines, independence looks more like a net. You can move, stretch, try things, even fall, but the net is still there. There's also the deep sense of gratitude woven into this way of living. Filipino parents don't see their children as tenants. Children don't see their parents as obstacles. There is an unspoken understanding that sacrifices were made, and staying close is one way of honoring that. I noticed how casually respect is practiced, not dramatic gestures. Just small things, waiting to eat together, checking in, bringing something home for everyone, not just yourself. These habits don't disappear when children grow up. They evolve. Of course, it's not perfect. There are conflicts. generational differences, privacy issues. But instead of solving those problems by separating, families negotiate. They adjust. They endure a little discomfort in exchange for long-term connection. That trade-off is something Americans struggle with. We prefer clean breaks, clear boundaries, space. Filipinos prefer flexibility, overlap, compromise. One night, I sat in the living room packed with people. Cousins on the floor, aunts gossiping. A grandfather half asleep in a chair. The TV loud, the fan louder. Someone handed me food without asking if I wanted it. Someone else asked if I was cold, even though it was tropical heat. I realized then that Filipino homes don't ask, "Do you want to belong?" They assume you do. Living with parents longer also changes how aging is viewed. In the West, aging parents become a future problem to solve. In the Philippines, aging happens in the open, surrounded by family. Elderly parents aren't shipped off to be managed. They're absorbed into daily life. This creates patience. Children grow up watching care happen naturally. They don't fear it as much. Taking care of parents isn't framed as a sacrifice. It's framed as continuity. I once asked a Filipino man what he thought about Americans moving out so early. He smiled politely and said, "You are very brave, but also very alone." That wasn't an insult. It was an observation. Filipinos value independence too, just differently. You can be independent and still live at home. You can earn your own money, make your own decisions, travel, love, fail, and grow while sleeping in the same house you grew up in. The house changes with you. Rooms get repurposed. Roles shift. Parents loosen their grip not because a child leaves, but because trust grows. What struck me most was how little ego there was around it. No one bragged about staying. No one defended it aggressively. It just was. In America, we justify our choices loudly. In the Philippines, people live theirs quietly. After months of observing this, I started questioning my own assumptions. Was moving out really about growth, or was it about proving something? Was independence always healthier or just more familiar? I thought about how many Americans struggle with loneliness, how many elderly people live isolated, how many adult children feel guilty but distant. Then I thought about Filipino homes full of noise, friction, warmth, and constant presence. Neither system is perfect, but one prioritizes the individual and the other prioritizes the group. And depending on what you value, that makes all the difference. When Filipinos live with their parents longer, it's not because they can't leave. It's because leaving isn't the ultimate goal. Staying connected is. They grow up understanding that life is shared, that success is communal, that happiness multiplies when it's distributed. They don't rush to separate chapters. They layer them. By the time I left the Philippines, the idea of living alone didn't feel like freedom anymore. It felt like an option, not a requirement. I realized that independence doesn't have to mean distance, and adulthood doesn't have to mean absence. Sometimes growing up doesn't mean moving out. Sometimes it means moving deeper in. And that's why Filipinos live with their parents longer, not because they're behind, but because they're holding on to something the rest of the world is slowly losing.